Well, hi, Sarita. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to talk about Truth and Transformation and Manifesto for Ailing Nations by Vishal Mangalwadi. And that is currently part of our Bible program in Level J. So can you start by telling us what that book is about and how it impacted you personally while you were reading it?
I'd be glad to. I want to start with saying the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I had always known that the gospel had a huge impact on individuals' lives. But Vishal Mangalwadi, his premise is that the gospel also has a huge impact on society, which I thought I had actually never heard that before. It was one of those where he opens as an Indian. He's an Indian believer. He made a trip to the Netherlands to do a conference to figure out how to serve the poor and help things get better. And while he was there, he thought, oh, this is just really a clean country. He took a journey with a friend, and they went to a local dairy to pick up milk. And he walked in and he didn't see any employees. And he just was flabbergasted that it looked so clean and so beautiful. And then his friend ended up picking up milk on his own, getting it from the tap, and then leaving money and change in a bowl. And he walked out of there and he went, how in the world did that happen? He couldn't hardly even imagine that could, he said, it would never happen in India. He said, we would have had 2 employees and they would have been a dirty farm, right? It was one of those where he went, so what is the difference? So that's basically the premise of the book, that Christianity impacts society in a lot of different ways. He talked about it in a couple of different ways. He talked about that it impacts the morality of a country. And that's what he showed that example in Holland. And he said it's because the people in Holland are trained from the beginning that we don't steal. They're trained to say the moral code is important. And because of that, you save money, that you don't have to have a clerk in that shop, right? You don't have to have somebody come and double check to make sure the milk is in good standards because you believe you're selling good milk to your customers. And ultimately, the whole society prospers when we follow the idea that we have a moral code that we should follow. He also talked about that technology came out of the West, and he believes it's because particularly believers would say, we want to get rid of toil, and we use tools to help us do that. He had a great quote in there, just I thought was amazing. If I can find it a minute. It was something like, the Bible is the first, let's see, yeah, try to get there. It was the first civilization in history that did not rest on the backs of sweating slaves. And the rationale is that we can come up with tools that can help us work more effectively. And I thought that's just interesting to say. Oftentimes we think, oh, technology just happened, but it comes out of a worldview, and he unpacks how that all works. He also believes that the family is unique in the West. And he ties it to the fact that the Bible says, have one wife. A man should leave his family and marry his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, right? The idea being that a family is made up of one husband and one wife. He said monogamy is something that just doesn't happen very often in the world. He said, just because it's really hard. But he quotes a man who says that the social institution that liberated Western women was monogamy. And what he claims from that is that if you have one wife, you have to try to make her happy, right? If you have more than one wife, you say, oh, you're irritating me, I'll just go to my other wife, by gum. So he believes that the Christian standards in the West have actually helped the family around the world. Just super, super interesting things to do. He basically claims that Christianity has had a huge, huge impact. He also believes that the whole idea that the West is founded on of equality is because people are created in God's image. And that doesn't happen in any other civilization of the world. So the rest of the book, that's kind of his front matter. The rest of the book is how do we heal the nations? And I think in a world where the nations need to be healed in ways that I think we've never seen before, this could be a great resource. And I share this book even for you kindergarten teachers who are going, one of these days we'll get to read this book as well. So I hope you can look forward to reading something that's just going to be so interesting and so much fun. So may it be.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. And how did you decide, because you read a lot of books all the time, how did you decide to include it in Level J? That's our History of Science program. What was it that made it a good fit for that program specifically?
Yeah, I think the passage on technology. So often we're told, science and religion don't mix. And I thought, I really want to bust that false idea because honestly, science only started in the West. And it was because Christians believed that we served an orderly God, a God who had formed the universe and expected us to use the minds he had given us to figure out how things would work. And that Mangalwadi has a chapter on that as well. And I thought that's helpful in a year when we study science, and the author, Hakim, does a marvelous job, but she's not a believer, and she has bought into the whole evolutionary mindset as well. So any ways we can counteract some of that wrong thinking and give kids tools to help them understand their faith is super important to me.
Yeah, that is great. Also, because that program is kind of that upper middle school, early high school level, are you able to read it maybe to a younger child, or is that something that you still think age-wise it needs to be an older child or an adult reading that book to really understand it well?
Well, I think Mangalwadi is very, very approachable. I think almost anyone could read that book, particularly if you read it aloud to them. I think Jay is probably better suited for either a student with a real strong interest in science and some understanding of that. She does a good job of introducing it all. And honestly, I've gone through Jay several times. And each time I go through, I think, wow, I just got smarter. So I'm hoping that everybody goes, oh my goodness, I just have to study Jay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard from many people that it's their very favorite program. Yeah, there's so much to learn there.